Hare Krishna, everyone. Welcome back to the daily readings of Srila Prabhupada's books. We have an announcement to make. The YouTube channel has officially been...
Here's a summary from Confederate.
We also have a summary coming soon from your local sponsors. Mayapur Shashi has... he already had one running up, but he changed the title to Daily Readings of Srila Prabhupada's book. So it has the same title as the Facebook, page, but he's organizing it, and he already has all the Bhagavad Gita lectures that we did here, whenever it was, 2 years ago or something. And he's working on the first canto, and it's going to be very nicely organized in tabs with the different scriptures. And you'll be able to scroll down and see easily, what place, canto, chapter, and like that. So you'll be able to find access easily. So this is a big encouragement and an improvement. Progress is being made. And we finished the 10th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam for the second time since we started doing these, live stream readings. So this is also a big deal. It's I have to check with the BBT trustees to get permission to do all this, because this is all, BBT material that I'm reading out. And all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but now we have the whole Bhagavatam, and now it's getting duplicates. So now we have to decide whether to just keep doing it or make one that's like the best of the best or whatever. So that's all going on. So thanks to all of you for your inspiration. That's why I'm doing it, because of you. I'm getting the strength to do it because of you. We did 50 pages today of the Anchalila. The first part of Anchalila is out of this world. It's Lord Chaitanya beating Rupa Goswami for the second time. And Ramananda Roy and Swarup Damodar, Lord Chaitanya, Sarvabhaumacharya come to see him and examine his writings. And he starts chanting these verses, and everybody just goes completely berserk in love of God, because there's never been anything so nectarian as Rupa Goswami's glorifications in these literatures. So we'll get to that after we do the Gita. We do this, and then the Gita, and then the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Okay. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mihima Stotram every day, like clockwork. We recite these prayers of Sanatana Goswami. We're getting to have a feel of being Sanatana Goswami's followers and even relatives, isn't it? Yeah. Srimad-Bhagavatam Mihima Stotram, and it goes like this. Sarva Shashabdi Piyusha, Sarva Vedaika Satpala, Sarva Siddhanta Ratnaja, Sarva Lokaika Drikprada. O nectar from the ocean of all scriptures, singular fruit of all the Vedas, rich mine of the precious gems of all conclusive truths, you are the only giver of sight to all the worlds. Sarva Bhagavata Prana, Srimad Bhagavata Prabho, Kalidwandodita Ditya, Shri Krishna Parivartita. O life air of all the Supreme Lord's devotees, O Master Srimad Bhagavatam, you are the sun risen in the darkness of Kali. You are the exact image of Shri Krishna. Paramananda Pataya, Prema Varshaksharayate, Sarvada Sarvasevyaya, Shri Krishnaya Namostume. I bow down to you, who are supremely blissful to read. Your every syllable pours down a flood of prema. You can always be served by everyone. You are Shri Krishna himself. Madeka Bando Matsangin, Madguro Man Mahadana, Man Nistadaka Mad Bhagya, Mad Ananda Namostute. My only friend, my constant companion, my spiritual master, my great wealth, my savior, my good fortune, my source of ecstasy, I bow down to you. Asadu saduta dayin, atini chochata kada, hanamun shagadachin mam, premdarit kantayos Buddha. O bestower of saintliness to the unsaintly, O exalter of the most fallen, please never leave me. Always appear in my heart and my voice with pure love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Srimad-Bhagavatam, 11th Canto, General History. Chapter 1. The Curse upon the Yadu Dynasty. This chapter gives a hint of the destruction of the Yadu Dynasty, which took place owing to the appearance of an iron club. Hearing this narration is a great impetus for becoming detached from the material world. Lord Sri Krishna expertly arranged the great Kurukshetra battle between the Kurus and the Pandavas, and thus removed to a great extent the earth's burden. But the Supreme Lord, whose influence is inconceivable, was not yet satisfied. Because of the continued presence of the undefeatable Yadu family, the Lord desired to bring about the destruction of the Yadu dynasty so that he could completely wind up his pastimes on the earth and go back to his own abode. Using the pretense of a curse by an assembly of Brahmanas, he withdrew his entire dynasty from the surface of the earth. By Sri Krishna's desire, many great sages, headed by Narada and Vishwamrita, assembled at the holy place named Pindaraka, near the city of Dwarka. The young boys of the Yadu family, absorbed in a playful mood, also arrived there. These boys dressed Samba in the guise of a pregnant woman about to give birth, and inquired from the sages about the fruitfulness of Samba's so-called pregnancy. The sages cursed the mocking boys by saying, "She will give birth to a club that will destroy your family." The Yadus, frightened by this curse, immediately lifted the garment from Samba's abdomen and found a club. Hurrying to the assembly of Ugrasena, the king of the Yadus, they offered a report of everything that had taken place. Fearing the Brahmana's curse, Yaduraj Ugrasena ordered the club ground to powder and thrown into the ocean. Within the ocean, a fish swallowed the last remaining lump of iron, and the waves carried all the bits of ground powder to the shore, where they were implanted and eventually grew into a grove of canes. Fishermen caught the fish, and a hunter named Jara used the iron lump found in its belly to fashion an arrow. Although the Super Soul Lord Sri Krishna understood what was happening, he did not wish to do anything to counteract it. Rather, in the form of time, he sanctioned these events. Text 1. Sri Shukadeva Goswami said, Lord Sri Krishna, accompanied by Balaram and surrounded by the Yadu dynasty, executed the killing of many demons. Then, further to remove the burden of the earth, the Lord arranged for the great battle of Kurukshetra, which suddenly erupted in violence between the Kurus and Pandavas. Purport. The 11th canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam begins with a reference to the pastimes executed by Lord Sri Krishna in the 10th canto. The beginning of the 10th canto describes that when the earth was overburdened by demoniac rulers, the personified earth, Bhumi, approached Lord Brahma with tears in her eyes, begging for relief. and Brahma immediately went with the demigods to approach the Supreme Lord in his form of Chirodakashayi Vishnu. As the demigods waited respectfully on the shore of the Milk Ocean, the Supreme Lord announced through Brahma that he would soon incarnate on earth and that the demigods should also descend to assist in his pastimes. Thus, from the very beginning of Lord Krishna's appearance, it was understood that he would descend to the earth to remove the demons. As Srila Prabhupada states in his commentary to Bhagavad Gita 16.6, those who agree to obey the injunctions of revealed scriptures are known as demigods, whereas those who defy the orders of the Vedic scriptures are known as asuras or demons. The Vedic literatures are presented within the universe for the guidance of the conditioned souls who were trapped under the three modes of material nature and who are therefore rotating in a continuous cycle of birth and death. By strictly adhering to the Vedic injunctions, we can easily satisfy our material needs and at the same time make tangible progress on the path back home, back to Godhead. Thus we can achieve an eternal life of bliss and knowledge in the Lord's own abode simply by obeying the Lord's instructions as they are presented in Vedic literatures such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam. The demons, however, minimize or even mock the absolute authority of the Supreme Lord and his teachings. Because these asuras envy the sovereign status of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they minimize the importance of the Vedic scriptures, which emanate directly from the breathing of the Lord. The demons established a society governed by their own concocted whims, and inevitably create chaos and misery, especially for pious living entities who sincerely desire to follow the will of God. Lord Sri Krishna states in the Bhagavad Gita that when there is a predominance of such chaotic, irreligious societies on the earth, he personally descends to rectify the imbalance. Thus, from the very beginning of his transcendental infancy, Krishna systematically killed the powerful asuras, or demons, who were an intolerable burden for the earth. Lord Sri Krishna was assisted by his brother Balaram, who was also the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Although God is one, he can expand himself to enjoy in many forms at once. That is his omnipotence. And the first such expansion is Balarama, or Baladev. Balarama killed many noteworthy demons, including Dhenukasura, Dvidvida, and the envious Rukmi. Krishna was also accompanied by the members of the Yadu Dynasty, many of whom were demigods who had descended to assist the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, has revealed that although many demigods had taken birth in the Yadu Dynasty to assist the Lord, some members of the Yadu Dynasty were actually inimical toward Krishna. Because of their mundane vision of the Lord, they considered themselves to be on the same level as Krishna. Having taken birth in the family of the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, they had inconceivable strength, and thus they misunderstood Krishna's supreme position. Having forgotten that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would constitute a great burden, and consequently it was necessary for Krishna to remove them from the earth. There is a popular saying that familiarity breeds contempt. To destroy the contemptuous members of his own dynasty, the Lord caused a quarrel among them. For this purpose, he arranged for Narada and other sages to display anger against the Karshnas, the members of his family. Although many Yadus who were devoted to Krishna were apparently killed in this fratricidal war, Lord Krishna actually returned them to their original positions as universal directors or demigods. It is the Lord's promise in the Bhagavad Gita that he will always protect those who were favorable to his service. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on this verse, has given a summary of the entire 11th canto as follows. Chapter 1 describes the beginning of the Maushala Lila, or the prelude to the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. Chapters 2 through 5 describe the conversations between the 9 Yogendras and King Nimi. Chapter 6 describes the prayers of Brahma, Shiva, and other residents of heaven. Chapters 7 through 29 present the conversation between Krishna and Uddhava. 29, 7, 22 chapters. That is known as the Uddhava Gita. Chapter 30 describes the withdrawal of the Yadu dynasty from the earth. The final chapter describes the disappearance of Lord Krishna. Text 2. Because the sons of Pandu were enraged by the numerous offenses of their enemies, such as duplicitous gambling, verbal insults, the seizing of Draupadi's hair, and many other cruel transgressions, the Supreme Lord engaged those Pandavas as the immediate cause to execute his will. On the pretext of the Battle of Kurukshetra, Lord Krishna arranged for all the kings who were burdening the earth to assemble with their armies on opposite sides of the battlefield, and when the Lord killed them through the agency of war, the earth was relieved of its burden. Purport. The Pandavas were repeatedly harassed by their enemies, such as Duryodhana and Dushasana. As innocent young princes, the Pandavas had no enemy, but Duryodhana was constantly plotting against his helpless cousins. The Pandavas were sent to a house of lac, which was later burned to the ground. They were administered poison, and their chaste wife Draupadi was publicly insulted when her hair was pulled and an attempt was made to strip her naked. Throughout these dangers, Lord Sri Krishna constantly protected the Pandavas, who were fully surrendered to him and who knew no shelter other than him. In this verse, the word itare taraha is significant. Previous to the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna had personally killed many demons, including Putana, Keshi, Aghasura, and Kamsa. Now, Krishna wanted to complete his mission of removing the earth's burden by killing the remaining impious persons. But as stated here, Kritva Nimitam, the Lord did not personally kill, but empowered his devotees, Arjuna and other Pandavas, to remove the impious kings. Thus acting personally and through his immediate expansion, Balarama, as well as by empowering his pure devotees, such as the Pandavas, Krishna fully displayed the pastimes of the Yuga Avatara by re-establishing religious principles and ridding the world of demons. Although the general purpose of the Kurukshetra battle was to kill the demons, Krishna also bestowed his causeless mercy upon them. As Srila Prabhupada explains in his purport to Srimad-Bhagavatam 1.9.39, in reference to the words Hata, Gata, Sarupam, all the warriors who died in the presence of Krishna on both sides returned immediately to his abode in the spiritual sky, in their original spiritual bodies. Text 3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead used the Yadu dynasty, which was protected by his own arms, to eliminate the kings who with their armies had been the burden of this earth. Then the unfathomable Lord thought to himself, although some may say that the earth's burden is now gone, in my opinion, it is not yet gone, because there still remains the Yadava dynasty itself, whose strength is unbearable for the earth. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has remarked in this regard that although ordinary people may think that the Lord had now removed the burden of the earth by killing the demons, re-establishing Dharma, and so on, Lord Sri Krishna himself could detect that there was further danger from the irreligious activities of his own family members who were acting improperly. It is stated in Srimad-Bhagavatam that a just king will refuse to punish his own enemy if his enemy is innocent, but will punish his own son if his son actually deserves punishment. Thus, although in the eyes of the world, the members of the Lord's own dynasty are always worshipable, Lord Krishna detected that by their intimate association with him, some members of the Yadu dynasty had become indifferent to his will. Since such whimsical members of the Yadu dynasty could act freely, being relatives of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they would surely cause great misfortune for the world. And foolish persons would take such whimsical behavior to be the will of Krishna. Thus the Lord, whose desires are inconceivable, began to consider the need to annihilate the indifferent, contemptuous members of the Yadu family. From the viewpoint of ordinary persons, all the demons had been killed by the Supreme Lord's pastimes in Dwarka and Mathura, as well as by the battle of Kurukshetra, and the earth was now free of its burden. Nevertheless, to free the earth from the remaining burden of his own puffed-up family members, Lord Sri Krishna transferred them away from the earth by causing a fratricidal quarrel among them. In this way he prepared for his own disappearance from the earth. Sridhar Swami has pointed out that the word Bahubi, by his arms, is used in the plural rather than the dual, to indicate that the Lord caused the destruction of the Yadu dynasty in his four-armed form. The original form of Krishna as Govinda is two-armed, but it was by the plenary portion of the four-armed Narayana that the Lord killed all the demons on the earth and ultimately removed the burdensome members of his own family. It may be asked, if certain members of the Yadu family had become indifferent to the will of the Lord, why didn't they oppose the Lord in his plan to remove them from the earth? Therefore the word aprameya is used, which indicates that it is impossible for anyone, even the Lord's own family members, to understand his will completely. Srila Jiva Goswami has given another reason for the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. He emphasizes that the activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead should never be taken to be ordinary material activities, nor are the Supreme Lord's associates ordinary persons. Although Lord Krishna apparently incarnates within this world for some time and then goes away, it should be understood that the Supreme Lord is eternally situated with his entourage in his various abodes in the spiritual sky, such as Sri Gokula, Mathura, and Dwarka. The members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates of the Lord, and therefore they cannot bear to be separated from the Lord. Since Krishna was preparing to give up his earthly pastimes, if he were to leave the Yadu dynasty on the earth, they would surely become so disturbed by his absence that in their highly agitated state of mind they would trample and destroy the earth. Therefore Krishna arranged the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty prior to his own disappearance. Srila Jiva Goswami concludes that ultimately the members of the Yadu dynasty are never to be considered irreligious. Vaishnava acharyas have mentioned that the story of the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty is especially meant to help the conditioned souls achieve liberation from the bondage of materialistic life. Within the three worlds, there were none as powerful and opulent as the Yadu dynasty. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the possessor of unlimited opulences, beauty, strength, knowledge, fame, and so on. And the members of the Yadu dynasty, being the personal associates of the Lord, were also endowed with inconceivable opulences. Therefore, when we see how a fratricidal war suddenly deprived the members of the Yadu dynasty of all of their earthly possessions, and even their lives, we can understand that there is no permanent position within this material world. In other words, although the members of the Yadu dynasty are eternal associates of the Lord and were immediately transferred to another planet where the Lord was appearing, their sudden disappearance through fratricidal war is meant to impress upon the conditioned souls the temporary nature of this world. Therefore, the apparent indifference or enmity of certain members of the Yadu dynasty toward Krishna should not be taken to be actual irreligion on their part. The entire situation was arranged by Lord Krishna to teach a lesson to the conditioned souls. In this connection, Srila Jiva Goswami has cited several verses from the Bhagavatam to prove that members of the Yadu dynasty achieved their exalted birth in the Lord's own family by innumerable pious activities and by complete absorption in thought of Lord Krishna. In fact, it is said that in sleeping, sitting, walking, and speaking, they were unable to remember their own selves because they were simply thinking of Krishna. In the first canto of Srimad-Bhagavatam, 1.15.33, Srila Prabhupada has commented as follows on the disappearance of the Yadu dynasty. The setting of the sun does not mean the end of the sun. It means that the sun is out of our sight. Similarly, the end of the mission of the Lord on a particular planet or universe only means that he is out of our sight. The end of the Yadu dynasty also does not mean that it is annihilated. It disappears along with the Lord out of our sight. Text 4. Lord Krishna thought, no outside force could ever bring about the defeat of this family, the Yadu dynasty, whose members have always been fully surrendered to me and are unrestricted in their opulence. But if I inspire a quarrel within the dynasty, that quarrel will act just like a fire created from the friction of bamboo in a grove, and then I shall achieve my real purpose and return to my eternal abode. Purport. Even though Lord Krishna wanted to arrange for the disappearance of the members of the Yadu dynasty, he could not personally kill them as he had killed many demons, because the Yadu dynasty was his own family. One might ask why Lord Krishna did not arrange for them to be killed by others. Therefore it is stated in this verse, Naivan yata paribhavu syabhavet katanchit. Because the Yadu dynasty was the Lord's own family, no one within the universe was capable of killing them. Not even the demigods. In fact, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur points out that no one within the universe was capable of even insulting the members of the Yadu dynasty, what to speak of defeating or killing them. The reason is given here by the words Mat Sang Shayasya. The members of the Yadu dynasty had taken full shelter of Krishna, and therefore they were always under the personal protection of the Lord. It is stated, Mare Krishna Rakhe Ke, Rakhe Krishna Mare Ke. If Krishna protects someone, no one can kill him. And if Krishna wants to kill someone, no one can save him. Krishna had originally requested all of his associates, along with the demigods, to appear on earth to assist him in his pastimes. Now that his pastimes were coming to an end on this particular planet and would be transferred to another planet in another universe, Krishna wanted to remove all of his associates from the earth, so that in his absence they would not constitute a burden. Since the powerful Yadu dynasty, being the Lord's personal family and army, could not possibly be defeated by anyone, Krishna arranged an internal quarrel, just as the wind in a bamboo forest sometimes rubs the bamboos together and creates a fire that consumes the entire forest. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has pointed out that ordinary people, hearing of the adventures of the Yadu family, might think that the heroes of the Yadu dynasty are as worshipable as Krishna, or that they are independent controllers. In other words, people polluted by Mayavad philosophy might see the Yadu dynasty as being on the same level as Krishna. Therefore, to establish that even the most powerful living entity can never equal or surpass the Supreme Lord, Lord Krishna arranged for the destruction of the Yadu dynasty. So you can see that what started it was Samba and the other princes who were young and playful, but they were just really powerful. They were so powerful. They came to Narada and the sages and mocked them. What's going to be the result of this pregnancy, sir? And they just saw right through it, of course, and just let him have it. And that's the kind of thing that Krishna's talking about, that even though they were so powerful and pious, they had this, this chip on their shoulder, this attitude, that nobody could do anything to them. When Krishna came back from, I think it was Vasnapur, or Indraprastha, and the other leaders were planning on attacking Jarasandha, remember? And they were just going to wipe Jarasandha's whole, dynasty off the face of the earth. Krishna had another plan, and there was a better way to do that, So, it's like that. These are examples that can be used to illustrate what Krishna was talking about. That if he would go, and after he was gone, they just started to, get kind of uppity about their being who they were. And Lord Chaitanya never had an issue. He never had any children. So therefore there was no one who could say, we're his son, so therefore, but Nityananda had sons, and there was a dynasty. And some of them went the wrong way, and also Advaitacharya, also, who was Mahavishnu, 3 of his sons went the wrong way. So all these examples are meant to show us how, why Krishna did what he did. Okay. Text 5. My dear King Parikshit, when the Supreme Almighty Lord, whose desire always comes to pass, had thus made up his mind, he withdrew his own family on the pretext of a curse spoken by an assembly of Brahmanas. Purport. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has made a very important comment on this verse. He states that since the intentions of the Supreme Lord, Krishna Chandra, are always perfect, it was certainly in consideration of the greatest benefit for the entire world that he destroyed his own family on the pretext of a curse by Brahmanas. In this connection, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has shown a parallel in the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who was Krishna himself, appearing as his own devotee. I just said this, so I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to preempt my God brothers. Lord Chaitanya appeared along with his first plenary expansion, known as Lord Nityananda Prabhu, and with Lord Advaita Prabhu. All 3 personalities, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and Advaita Prabhu, are accepted by Vaishnava Acharyas to be in the category of Vishnu Tattva, the full status of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These 3 personalities of Godhead perceived that in the future their so-called seminal descendants would get undue recognition, and thus, being puffed up, would commit grave offenses against those who were actually Vaishnava gurus, or representatives of the Lord. Every living being is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, as stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Mamai Vangsha. Every living entity is originally a son of God, yet to execute his pastimes, the Lord selects certain highly qualified living entities whom he allows to take birth as his personal relatives. But those living entities who appear as descendants of the Lord's personal family may undoubtedly become proud of such a position and thus abuse the great adulation they receive from ordinary people. In this way, such persons may artificially get undue attention and divert people from the actual principle of spiritual advancement, which is to surrender to the pure devotee who represents the Lord. The last 8 verses of the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita give a description of the pure devotees of the Lord's. The last 8 verses of the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita give a description of the pure devotees the Lord permits to act as acharyas, or spiritual leaders of mankind. In other words, simply to take birth in the personal family of Krishna is not the qualification for being a spiritual master. Since according to Bhagavad Gita, Pitaham Asya Jagata, every living entity is eternally a member of the Lord's family. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Samoham sarvabhuteshu name dvesho stina paraha. I am equal to everyone. No one is my enemy, and no one is my special friend. If the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears to have a special family, such as the Yadu Dynasty, such a so-called family is a special arrangement of the Lord's pastimes in order to attract the conditioned souls. When Krishna descends, he acts as if he were an ordinary person in order to attract the living entities to his pastimes. Therefore, Krishna acted as though the Yadu Dynasty was his personal family, although in fact, every living entity is a member of his family. Ordinary people, however, not understanding the higher principles of spiritual knowledge, easily forget the actual qualifications of a bona fide spiritual master, and instead give undue importance to people born in the Lord's so-called family. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, therefore, avoided this impediment on the path of spiritual enlightenment by leaving behind no children. Although Chaitanya Mahaprabhu married twice, he was childless. Nityananda Prabhu, who is also the Supreme Personality of Godhead, did not accept any of the natural sons born of his own son, Sri Virabhadra. Similarly, Lord Advaita Acharya divested of his association all of his sons except Achyutananda and 2 others. Achyutananda, the chief faithful son of Advaita Acharya, had no seminal progeny, and the remaining 3 of the 6 sons of Lord Advaita fell from the path of devotion to the Lord and are known as rejected sons. In other words, the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu allowed little facility for continuing a so-called seminal family to create confusion. The respect shown to the conception of seminal lineage in deference to the ideas of the smartas is unfit to be accepted by one who actually understands the supreme truth from Vedic authority. Other acharyas or spiritual masters have also demonstrated this point in their own families. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, our own beloved spiritual master, who is the mighty author of this Srimad-Bhagavatam series, was born in a family of pure devotees, and he himself exhibited all the symptoms of pure devotional service from his very childhood. Srila Prabhupada eventually came to the Western countries and exhibited unprecedented spiritual potency in establishing the Krishna consciousness movement all over the world. In a few short years, he translated more than 50 large volumes of Vedic philosophy. By his practical activities, he is certainly understood to be a most empowered representative of the Lord. Nonetheless, his own family members, although devotees of Krishna, did not at all come up to the proper standard of devotional service and are therefore not given attention by the members of ISKCON. The natural tendency for the members of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness would be to offer all reverence and worship to the members of Srila Prabhupada's immediate family. But since by Krishna's arrangement, these family members are not at all on the platform of pure devotional service. The members of ISKCON give them hardly any attention, but instead worship those who actually exhibit the qualities of highly advanced Vaishnavas, regardless of their so-called birth. In other words, birth cannot constitute the qualification for a respectable person, even when one is born in the Lord's own family or in the Acharya's family. What to speak of an ordinary, wealthy, or learned family? In India, there is a class of men known as Nityananda Bangsha, who claim to be direct descendants of Lord Nityananda and therefore worthy of the highest respect for their position in devotional service. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada has written in the Nectar of Devotion, in the Middle Ages, after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya's great associate, Lord Nityananda, a class of priestly persons claimed to be the descendants of Nityananda, calling themselves the Goswami caste. They further claimed that the practice and spreading of devotional service belonged only to their particular class, which was known as Nityananda Bangsha. In this way, they exercised their artificial power for some time, until Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, the powerful Acharya of the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, completely smashed their idea. There was a great hard struggle for some time, but it has turned out successful, and it is now correctly and practically established that devotional service is not restricted to a particular class of men. Besides that, anyone who is engaged in devotional service is already a high-class brahmana. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's struggle for this movement has come out successful. It is on the basis of his position that anyone from any part of the universe can become a Gaudiya Vaishnava. In other words, the essence of spiritual knowledge is that every living being, regardless of his present status in life, is originally a servant of the Supreme Lord, and it is the mission of the Lord to reclaim all of these fallen conditioned living entities. Despite his past situation, any living being who is willing to surrender again to the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord or his bona fide representative can purify himself by strictly adhering to the rules and regulations of Bhakti Yoga and thus act as a high-class brahmana. Nonetheless, the seminal descendants of the Lord think themselves to have acquired their ancestors' character and position. Thus the Supreme Lord, who is the well-wisher of the entire universe and especially of his devotees, bewilders the discriminatory power of his own descendants in such a contradictory way that these seminal descendants become recognized as deviant, and the actual qualification to be a representative of the Lord, namely unalloyed surrender to the will of Krishna, remains prominent. Hare Krishna. These are fantastic purports. This whole 11th canto is like this. Okay, so we'll stop the reading there for the night. That's about an hour, a little less. The open mic is on. Prana, please grace us, please. Thank you. You're the only one who can remember all these things.
Well, I was just thinking how often the Lord's will is misunderstood, and whatever the external appearance of it may be, it comes as a curse, or as some, the whole Yadu Dynasty is entering this, not civil war, but this fratricidal war, it was called. And it just made me think that it takes faith, because also people will read this Maushala Leela and get bewildered and not understand how the Lord's will was to benefit everyone, how the Yadus didn't actually lose. They just as the sun rises and sets like that, and the earth was relieved of the burden. So it seems like what I'm reflecting on is how to have faith in the Lord's will, that He's always doing what's best for us, even though it might not seem like it at the time.
Correct. Thank you. Yes, Bhakti Tyler.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So this last purport.
What do they call it? It's a relay. It's a pass off the baton and see how long how far you can take it.
Let's go. Team, go. I don't know if I exactly know how I'm going to word the question, but I believe I can get the point across. Just seeing that this purport's very deep in understanding how easy it is for like the false ego to get involved. Yeah, as a international movement, we're like trying to preach, and we want to show respect to others, so that way we have good public relations. But at the same time, like, how much do we really worry about, I mean, respect is one thing, but how much do we really worry about catering to the world if they're not on the level of pure devotional service, beyond just like, okay, we want to give you pure devotional service also, but if you're unwilling to take that up, is it wrong of us if we just kind of dismiss them? Or is that like, should we feel bad? And should we like show like constant respect? Like, actually, you're doing good. Wherever you're at is okay. We like that. So if you understand.
Well, there was a really nice purport that I just read in the end of the Madhya Lila, where Srila Prabhupada prays in the purport that all the members of the Krishna consciousness movement become pure devotees, so that by their association the world will change, and people that will meet them will actually change. So our business is not to reject anyone, because Lord Krishna's mercy and Lord Nityananda's mercy are unlimited. Prabhupada said it many times, and they show it, especially Lord Nityananda shows it. But that doesn't mean that we should adjust our movement in such a way as they will feel more attracted to us. Prabhupada's will and Prabhupada's teachings and his example and his instructions to us were that we should become That's why I took it off, because I was afraid of that. But now I'm seeing the reality. Yeah, look at that. I hope it's not completely ruined. It does? Okay, good, thank you. Whew. Boy, thanks a lot. So we exhibit that unlimited mercy by going out. Harinam, festivals, book distribution, prasad distribution, And by that activity, gradually we're purifying human society. And, it's not up to us how long it takes. And in fact, it's going to take a long time. It will take, we shouldn't be impatient that, we've gotten so many books out and, where are all the devotees in the temple? It's not like that. It will take generations upon generations upon generations. And so our duty is to follow the instructions of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, our previous acharyas, and especially Srila Prabhupada, who embodies the teachings and the example of all the previous acharyas, and do what he tells us. And if we do that, then it will be effective. And we can't, just like it said here, no one can understand completely the will of the Lord. So we shouldn't think we can know more than Lord Chaitanya how to spread Krishna consciousness and make up things as we go along. We should dutifully follow Mahajano, Yenikata Sapanta, that's the way, is to follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas. You know, speak what they speak, act the way they acted, you know, according to our own capacity. We can't imitate. If we try to imitate, we'll insult them by acting like fools, you know. Something?
Everything, yeah.
No, it's not everything, something. I'll settle for something, thanks. Okay, who's gonna take the baton? Next one to take baton. It's a relay race. Yes, Pranag. Go ahead.
One more reflection.
Take another leg.
It's said in this last report about how this Nityananda Vamsha thought at some point that they were the only ones who were able to had the claim to practicing and spreading devotional service.
Yeah.
And then Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said he crushed the misconception or something.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking that's really far out, I guess, that you know, things can be so forgotten or lost, and at least I might take it for granted that we have these, you know, Prabhupada was just here establishing this movement, and now his direct disciples are here, and I kind of take it for granted it will always be like that, but kind of emphasizes the importance of what you just said, following in the footsteps of previous acharyas.
Yeah,
strictly.
because when the Goswamis came, you know, they were real Goswamis, and they appointed pujaris, you know, brahmanas, to take care of the temples that they set up. And then what they did was they started to call themselves Goswamis and started a family lineage to this day, you know. And even they own the property that belongs to the deity, and sometimes they sell it off to make more money for their families. And they do all these things, you know. So there's no one that's above it. And even in our movement, we've had devotees who are in exalted positions fall away because of being not careful enough, not following carefully enough, and not developing the qualities of humility. And by the way, I was very interested in one of the purports where my godbrothers pointed out that the last eight verses of the 12th chapter are to show who's actually qualified to be guru. That calls for a little extra reading on top of the reading, I think, because I don't have a memory like Pranahari, so I will read it. Okay. 12. Yes. Yeah. Text 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 8 verses. I'll just read the verses and not the purports, because that would take too long. 13 and 14. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. 15. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. 16. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices, nor grieves, nor neither laments, nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in devotional service, such a person is very dear to me. Those who follow this imperishable path of devotional service and who completely engage themselves with faith, making me the supreme goal, are very, very dear to me. So it's interesting that they quoted these verses to show who's actually qualified to be. So it's all there. We can tell who's who. But anyone who's even approaching, devotional service and trying, as we said many times in these last few weeks, anybody who actually for a moment sincerely surrenders to Krishna, from this day I'm yours, from now, this moment I'm yours, even if they can't do it, the Lord never forgets that. And He makes arrangements throughout the rest of the soul's situation in the material world, for the duration of his existence in the material world. He takes care of him, and He makes all arrangements to protect him and protect him from himself. Maybe sometimes when we do things and want to do things that are just not so good for us, He makes arrangements. If we're not capable, did she fall? Run and check. Oh.
Someone else also coming.
Oh, someone else fell. No. Anyway, I was worried. It actually happened once. It was Kalindi. She fell.
A couple of times.
Yeah. Yeah. It takes me, I don't know how many minutes. I have to go down those stairs to get to record. Well, look who's here. Now I have to. Somebody has to tell me his name. See. Jai Sachi Nandana. Congratulations. So nice to see you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. So, where was I? Somebody.
The Lord makes all arrangements for that soul if they sin.
Yeah. Even if the soul gets carried away, then Krishna will take everything away. Or if Krishna wants to make sure that the soul, just like Prabhupada, he came to Vrindavan after his family, didn't work out, and his business didn't work out, and he was really expert. Giriraj Maharaj and I went to, we were going door to door to help get some support during the time when there was a big crisis in Bombay. And we went to the office of Pranlal Bogilal, a Gujarati aristocratic person, huge money, family money. You know, that money that comes from generations and build. He was big. And he told us, he said, you don't know who your Prabhupada was, He said he was capable of being a Birla. He was that expert. He was so expert. And so the fact that he didn't, and then he did what he did, he said that is Krishna's will. He's this pious guy. So he said this was Krishna's will, that Krishna arranged it so that he could to do this, to bring the movement here. But then what? You should read the diary, the journal of his first year in New York. It's very good exercise for everyone to read, where you see his entries, and he puts entries. I spent 10 cents, and 20 cents came in, and I had 3 persons come, and the collection was 25 cents. And these are real figures, I'm not making these up. And one time he even said, we had the biggest attendance today, 19 devotees, but the collection was only $8. And it was like that for a whole year. How he maintained himself was just, I don't know. It's no other option than Krishna did that, you know. And then when he was just completely, you know, no chant, no question, then it started, you know, and Krishna started giving him, and by the time he left, what did he have? He had, you know, he had houses all over the planet, you know, and devotees who would come to the airport and throw flowers at him and, you know, glorify him and take him everywhere. He would sometimes get, you know, picked up in a Rolls Royce, you know, car, and somebody criticized him. He said, "What is this tin can?" I would say, "What is this tin can? They should bring a golden car. That would be proper." So he was so tested that he could say things like that and do things like that and be completely clean. Nothing could stick to him. You know? Amazing. So, yeah, that's what happens when you surrender to Krishna completely. And we're all experiencing it to a certain degree. Everybody who's sitting in this room, we've experienced it. You know? Some mystical experience, some thing happened, there's nowhere else to go, and, you know? And you know, along the way we build up, we bring it's not that it's just you walk in the door and you're not humble, and you walk through that door and then you are humble. You know, it's not like that. It's like, it's a gradual practice, it's a gradual awakening of it. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. It's like the removing of film from a, you know, from a light that, you know, gets lighter and lighter and lighter until finally one is fixed in pure devotional service. So Krishna, knowing all that, you know, he just knew that there were some of his family members, just by dint of being in this material world, who would become, you know, would misuse the reputation of being the child of God. How many people, now we have movements called the children of God, and what do? You know, send their girls out to, you know, to recruit. You know, it's like, anyway, there's been one scandal after another. So anyway, we have our marching orders, and it's right there in 12th chapter, at the end of the 12th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Anyone is free to read it and refresh their memory anytime, and should, anytime. Okay, who else? I got about 5 more minutes. Okay, we started on the journey, 11th canto. Well, continuous of the journey. We just changed trains. No, same destination, just at the 11th canto now. Thank you very much. Thank you everyone out there in cyberspace. Hang in there, stay with us, and something? It's okay? Srimad-Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. See you tomorrow night at 6 in the evening, Central Time, USA, in Radha Lane. Hare Krishna. Hari Bol. Thank you.